Kal Kadosh, Erev Tov. Okay, we are going to be continuing. This is still Siman Tzadik Bet, but hopefully we're finishing Siman Tzadik Bet, right? Because we're going towards the end of Tzadik Bet. So this is going to be officially for them, it's going to be probably Shiur 11. For us, it's probably 12 or 13, because we're not going to the order of their shiurim, because we went slower on every single shiur. So no, that's in Hebrew. What?
From all the classes around.
That's always like that, John Jack. But it's okay. But we're slower than the curriculum.
Then who?
Huh?
Then who?
Than the curriculum, because in the curriculum today should be Shiur 11.
That curriculum.
I know. So, but we're going at the pace. Okay.
That's good, Rabbi.
Okay, fine.
You're doing wonderful. Just
okay. Do all
don't
foods create steam?
Underestimate your ability.
100%. 100%. We fly here. Fine. Okay.
14 in Hebrew.
Okay, so let's go. The Badei Shulchan is more stringent, maintaining that all foods produce steam, as evident in the Raman Siman Kufchet discussing baked goods, who nevertheless refers to Ze'ah. Therefore, according to Badei Shulchan, he paskins that if you want to use the same oven for meat and then dairy, you must always have one of them covered. Okay, he adds that even covering does not suffice if you cook two liquid dishes one after another, because liquid dishes clearly emit a large amount of steam, and therefore it does not help. So if you remember last time we were speaking about, can you use a meaty oven, or can you use an oven for meat and milk? So he said at the same time, for sure not. Maybe one after another, yes, especially if it's going to be dry. But if it's dry, the second one, let's say it's the milk that's dry. So we gave the example of milky croissants or cakes, but again, dry. Everything has to be dry. Or no, because pasta many times is sauce, so pasta you have to be careful. But we had chalot, right, or things like that. So in many of these cases, what's going to happen is that if it's dry, there shouldn't be a problem whatsoever. Correct? That's what we said. The Badei Shulchan argues on that, and he says no, you have to be stringent, because he says that there does exist the concept of ze'ah even on dry. So if it does exist the concept of ze'ah even on dry, so therefore you do have a problem. So not like what we learned last time, that Rav Moshe Feinstein, because if you look at the previous page, you had the Rav Moshe Feinstein. The Rav Moshe Feinstein was lenient, and he says basically that by a dry food, there's not going to be ze'ah. If there's not going to be ze'ah, ze'ah is like the steam that comes up, because it's dry. Because chalot. Let's say you made milky chalot, or you put butter, a little bit of butter that inside of the croissants. So therefore, it's not going to make. So therefore, even though you just cooked the meat, right? So therefore, there's no problem with the milk. Even though, again, there was a concept of 24 hours or not 24 hours. But again, he wants to say that if the oven was used for dairy food 24 hours later, it should be permitted. So Rav Moshe Feinstein, even though he permitted it, it was only after 24 hours. Okay?
What about Nutella?
1 minute. No, that's dairy.
Yeah.
No, so that's 100%. Yeah, 100% that's dairy. Okay, so he says, right, that was the Igrot Moshe. So Igrot Moshe of Moshe Feinstein was going to be the what? After 24 hours, as long as it's going to be something dry, right, which is going to be bread, which is going to be, how do you call this? Anything which is dry. It could be whatever it is you're making, but it's something dry, there's not going to be a problem in the meaty oven. Fine. The next, the Badei Shulchan, more stringent, even lechatchila, zelefir of Moshe. Aval, Badei Shulchan, hu machmir. Since the Badei Shulchan is machmir, what does he say? Asur. Why? He says there does exist ze'ah, even if it's dry. So even if it's dry, there's a problem of ze'ah, and therefore, right, it's not going to help you. However, though, he comes and he says, what helps if one of them is always covered? So let's say you cover always the meat, or the milk, whichever one you want, but one of them always has to be covered. Now says the Badei Shulchan, but if one of them, if it's going to be liquids, then it doesn't help even covering, because liquids, since there's always so much steam, now we're going to get to the Yalkut Yosef. If you remember last shiur, the end of the shiur, they were putting a lot of pressure on me because they wanted to know the halacha l'maaseh, and I told them it doesn't work that way, right? It doesn't work that way. It works that you have to go in life step by step. You can't tell a baby, listen, right now, start walking. First, you have to move a little bit. Then you have to roll over. Then you have to start crawling or start moving. Then afterwards, you do a little bit of thing. Then That's the way that it is. So therefore, certain children, right, that we have over here, right, they're still in the crawling stages, or even before crawling, they're mamash like pulling, but they already want to be running. So therefore, I tell them, shwai, they have to go little by little. Why? Because we have to see how it's going to progress. So now we're going to get to Yalkut Yosef. What is the Shitat Yalkut Yosef? Which means that usually I would tell you, listen, Yalkut Yosef is usually Mekel, usually, Ravadi and everything is more Mekel. Let's see what the Yalkut Yosef says. The Yalkut Yosef is even more stringent than the Badei HaShulchan. Meaning, he's even more stringent, right, than the Badei HaShulchan. We brought the Rav Moshe Feinstein that he was lenient after 24 hours if it was a dry, milky food that you're putting into a meaty oven. The Badei HaShulchan is stringent, and he says, no, you need always one to be covered. And if it's a liquid, even one to be covered does not help. Comes the Yalkut Yosef and he says, "Afilu yoter machmir ma Badei HaShulchan," that covering the opposite food, even when it's dry, ze lo maspik. It doesn't help. And also 24 hours after for liquids also doesn't help. Rather, so now he's going to say this: when it's baking dry food, for example, dairy cookies in a meaty oven, you have to wait 24 hours. You have to burn the oven out for 30 minutes, which means that you have to put the temperature b'darga achi gvoa, right? No, not self-cleaning. First of all, end of our kazeh, self-clean for chatzisha. Self-clean, usually it's around 4 hours, 4 to 5 hours, depends on the oven, yes. Self-clean, end of our kazeh. Tivdok akshav b'ChatGPT, end davar kazeh. Yeah, there's no such thing as self-clean in half an hour, right? It's not self-clean. It's you're putting the maximum of the heat for 30 minutes, and then you can bake the cookies. Now, if you want to cook food that contains liquid, so then you have to wait 24 hours, burn the oven out, and cover the liquid food when cooking. However, the Yalkut Yosef acknowledges that it's a chumrah, and b'diavad, even if it's going to be food, containing liquid, cooked, right, even within the 24 hours, it's going to be permitted if the oven was burnt out. So what does it mean the chumrah? So this is the way, that means b'diavad. One of the person calls you up and they said, no. He says, this is what you have to do. No. So here he doesn't say tov lachmir. Here he means that I understand. Thank you for letting me finish. Right? The fact that he understands that it's a chumrah, there's a b'diavad. What does that mean, the b'diavad? That means lechatchila. This is not like the other places where he says, by the way, you should know, this is meikar adin, ve'yesh lachmir or tov lachmir. No. This is the halacha, זה מה שאתה צריך לעשות. עכשיו, בגלל שכן יש שיטות שמקילים, and I understand that there are people that are more lenient, so therefore, b'diavad, you could be lenient in a certain scenario. And that's what he says over here. B'diavad, food containing liquid cooked even within the 24 hours is going to be permitted if you burnt out the oven. Okay? Pizza. So basically, that was the Yalkut Yosef. We're going to now give the summary. Everyone with me? Summary. To summarize, bottom of page 19. To summarize, the Oziel Yaakov quotes many who hold that foods cooked in our ovens do emit steam, which is then absorbed in the walls of the oven. So one more time. Oziel Yaakov. Foods cooked in our ovens do take out steam. Because you remember there was a shita that basically there's no steam anymore nowadays. Because it just evaporates and that's it. So therefore, if meat and dairy are cooked one after another, the walls of the oven become taref. And then the flavor is either subsequently drawn out of the walls, right? Or it possibly drips into the next food. Okay, Rav Moshe agrees that we should be concerned for zeah in our ovens, but there's no need to be concerned for dry foods, which normally do not emit steam. Therefore, you may bake challah in a dairy oven and eat the challah with meat. Okay, until here clear? That's the Rav Moshe Feinstein. The Badei HaShulchan paskins that it's possible for all foods to emit steam, even dry, and therefore you must designate the oven as dairy or meaty and always cover the opposite food. If you wish to cook two liquids within 24 hours of each other, even covering is not enough. Okay, Yalkut Yosef agrees that it is possible for all foods to emit steam as well. And if you want to use a meaty oven for dairy food, you have to wait 24 hours and also burn out the oven, which means half an hour to steam it be maximum, right? You put it on the maximum for half an hour, and then that's it, and then you're good to go. Okay, if you wish to cook the food containing a liquid, so then you need the 24 hours right? He says if you wish to cook food to continue liquid, you need the 24 hours and burning out the oven. You must also cover the dairy food. So that's the addition. The addition, you also need to cover it. Because according to Rav Moshe,
30 minutes on the maximum and cover.
if it's a liquid. If it's not a liquid, 24 hours and half an hour. So 24 hours, you didn't use the oven at all. You put it on for half an hour, okay, for the maximum temperature, and then you come and you use it. That is going to be if it's dry. Okay, until here we're clear? Very good. Even Yikara Paskins, that our ovens do not create steam because they are hot enough that the steam burns before reaching the walls. Rav Shechter adds, right? He comes and he says, thank you. Okay, first, thank you. So he comes and he says like this. So Shechter comes and he adds, as follows. He says that even if the steam is absorbed in the walls, the tray flavor cannot be drawn out of the walls. You remember we said that it goes up, gets into the walls, but it doesn't have the power to bring it back down. Means that it can only go one way. It's not a two-way street. It's only going up. The steam goes up to the walls, but it stays there. It cannot draw it forth down. That was the Rav Shechter that he said about this concept. So therefore he says if your oven is clean, you're allowed to cook meat and then milk in the same oven, but you should let the oven cool down. Because that way, if it cooled down, now that's it. Okay, until here we're clear?
Cool down when you're
No, between one another. Meaning you just cooked meat. When you finish the meat, wait, and now when it's completely cold, now you could come and you could do the
together.
Yeah. No, one after another. One after another. One after another. Okay?
That I understood one.
Yeah, one after another. Okay? Fine. What is the accepted psak halacha lema'aseh? Yeah? Can you... תעשה לי טובה, תביא לי משהו לשתות. לא, את הספרייט שם, יש ספרייט קר. Yeah? So he says like this. What is accepted psak halacha lema'aseh? Ideally, he says, it is best to avoid the machloket and purchase two ovens. One for meat and one for dairy. However, if you only have one, so the majority of the poskim in America and Israel assume that modern ovens can produce halachically significant steam, and you should not use the same oven to cook uncovered meat and then dairy and vice versa. Therefore, right, if you want to cook a meaty oven, you should clean the oven, wait 24 hours, and burn it out. Alternatively, Rav Moshe comes above and he applies that Shmirat Shabbat Kichad paskins explicitly that if the food is covered, you may lechatchila bake it in the opposite oven. Furthermore, many follow Rav Moshe's approach that baking dry part of a food to be eaten with milk, or even dry dairy food in a meaty oven is allowed if the oven is clean. Rav David Feinstein quoted Ol Yaakov, right, which he says that he added that even regarding food containing liquid, his father Moshe was only machmir lechatchila, but if you inspect the inside of the oven and you don't see any steam, you could be lenient with the avad, even if it's going to be within the 24 hours.
You're going to be seeing the steam. It has to be
When the
cold.
oven is cold, you don't see.
Which one?
When the oven is cold,
You don't see steam.
no steam.
No. If you inspect the inside of the oven when the food was there, and you don't see any steam. So the Avnei Yashve comes and he paskins that even it's still there. So he says, right? So he says the Avnei Yashve comes and he paskins that even baking bread, which is dry after meat, is problematic because it is common for there to be some residue of meat on the walls, right? And therefore he says you should clean out the oven, burn it out, and then bake the bread. And he says if it's possible, obviously have multiple ovens. Obviously, that's if you can, right? That's the best. So sikum, if you want, it's very, very simple. We could go straight with the Yalkut Yosef. That's the easiest one to go with. So bikitsur, right? Obviously, lichatechila, it's always better to have meat and milky ovens. If you cannot have a meat and a milky oven, and you want to let's say make bread, a milky cake, right, in the meaty oven. So therefore, what you're supposed to do is make sure that it wasn't used for half an hour, turn it on to the maximum, and after having it on the maximum, you could cook your milky.
How long?
Yes, after 24 hours. After 24 hours plus 30 minutes of burning it out, right? 24 hours and 30 minutes. Yeah, broil the maximum. Maximum. You put the maximum. You put the broil and then half an hour, and then after the half an hour, now you're allowed to do whatever you want. But if it's a liquid, you have to also cover it. That's if you want halacha l'maaseh. Ma? ואם לא, אז בדיעבד זה בסדר.
רק בדיעבד?
Yes, בדיעבד, בליquid. Yeah, ברוך אתה אדוני. כל עניין לה.
24 שעות.
בדיעבד אפילו בתוך ה-27.
זה מה שהוא אומר, בדיעבד.
לא, אומר בדיעבד, בליקוויד אם לא כיסית.
If there wasn't any steam, then b'diavad you could also be within the 24 hours. Okay, let's go practical applications. Okay, practical applications. Steam ovens. Yeah, we're going to speak about steam ovens.
We should be doing some kind of internal between us examination, you know, and having.
So the truth is, there was a video that I wanted to show everybody. The problem is, I don't. There was a video. Here it is, on page 17 on the bottom on ovens. So, Blineder, if we have time, we'll put on the video. Yeah. If you guys behave, you have video night.
אבל אם זה תנור בשרי,
Yes.
ואתה רוצה לחמם לחם, יש לחם חצי אפוי, אתה יודע, שאתה עושה אותו ולאכול אותו.
מה זה חצי אחוז?
אפוי.
חצי אפוי. הבנתי.
הבגטים האלה.
כן.
אתה רוצה לאכול אותו עם גבינה. זה אין בעיה.
You're talking about within the 24 hours?
According to Rav Moshe Feinstein.
בצרי.
כן.
בצרי.
אבל בתוך ה-24 שעות?
No hay nada.
24 שעות, כן.
Rabino, la comida esa es para aquí.
¿Cuál? ¿La cenecita?
Que me hizo, sí, que ya la traían la gente de Chinechita porque.
Sí. La cenecita es para aquí. Tráelo aquí.
De sushi.
No, eso es para las 8:30.
Ah, ok.
Y la fruta también es para 8:30.
Bueno,
Sí, todo eso se puede tirar si está vacío.
אבל שיעור לא נכון, סוזר.
מי מתיר את זה גם כן?
One second.
The שאלה is basically what he asked is Rav Moshe Feinstein.
Yeah,
He said,
for
he's
sure.
the one.
Fine. There are fancy ovens sold today called steam ovens. Now, again, there's another video. So, Blineder, if we have time, we'll put the videos. Which introduce steam into the oven to enhance the flavor of the food. Although the steam comes from a water reservoir built into the oven and not from the food itself, the steam has a halachic status of water. And the oven is considered as filled with water vapor, like a pot. So he's פה זה כבר לא תנור, זה כמו סיר. Okay? So he says, right, as a result, the flavor absorbed in the walls of the oven is easily drawn out with the steam. It would seem that all opinions would agree that these ovens may not be used for meat and then dry and then dairy or vice versa. 21 on the top, right? The steam in the ovens, right? He comes and he says is more similar to hevel, right? Which is basically the steam inside of a pot, which is capable of infusing and drawing out of the flavor from the walls. And even Rav Shechter would agree that the oven may not be used for meat and dairy. Furthermore, if you cook a liquid in a regular oven, right, turn the oven off and leave the dish inside as the oven cools, steam will continue to rise from the dish and be absorbed in the walls. Okay? In such a situation, right, in the Even Yikra would agree that the steam is present, but Rav Shechter would hold that this steam is only zeah and will not later reemerge from the oven walls. Okay? Fine. What about now burning challah? Okay? Burning salat. Burning challah. When baking a certain amount of challah, one is obligated to perform a frashat challah. And the piece, right, is termed challah. Okay? Which means that's why they come. They do bracha, right? And then afterwards they come and they say, haruzo cholar, is it trumat challah, whatever it is, each one they say whatever they want. That is covered, right? That is removed, which is going to be forbidden to eat and must be burnt. Are you allowed to burn it in a kosher oven? That's the question. So he says, according to the Badei Shulchan, burning uncovered challah in an oven makes oven non-kosher. But according to Moshe Feinstein, you would be allowed to, right? He says, as long as there's no other food, obviously. But the tray beneath would require it to be koshered because it absorbs non-kosher flavor. So therefore, the accepted custom is just to wrap it up in aluminum foil and then burn it in the oven, right? Many people, they wrap it twice. And when you wrap it up, you may even bake regular challah of Shabbat in the oven at the same time as evident by the Ramah. Okay? You understood? That means you either wrap it up twice and you burn it, or some people, they just throw it out. I've actually seen people just throw it out as well. הפרשת חלה. מה אתה עושה עם החלה שהפרשת? very good. So עכשיו, אם אתה שורף את זה, אתה יכול לשרוף את זה עם אוכל אחר בתוך התנור? זה בעיה. You've got the challah.
כאילו חיממת משהו ואתה...
No, you just did הפרשת challah. And after הפרשת challah, what are you going to do? You're going to come and you're going to, how do you call this? You're going to put it with the chalot. You're going to take this challah and you're going to put it inside. Can you do that?
קצת כאילו?
כן, בצד. Can you do that or not?
עכשיו לא, אבל אמרת עכשיו שלא.
אז עכשיו לא, נכון.
למה?
למה? בגלל אם זה איסור, כן? אם זה איסור, אז זה בעיה עכשיו. בגלל זה עכשיו עושה כל השאר לא כשר. זה תרומה, נכון? וחלה זה מי יכול לאכול את זה? רק כהן. נכון או לא? זה כמו תרומה. So therefore, if right now you put that in the oven, and now in the oven you come and you start cooking it, baking it with other things, זה בעייתי. לא יכול להיות באותו זמן.
למה?
זה כמו תרומה.
אני מבין מה הוא אומר, אבל...
זה כמו לא כשר. אסור לי לאכול את זה.
צל את התנור,
ודאי.
ואחרי זה, אם אתה רוצה לחמם משהו.
אחרי זה זה משהו אחר. רק שנייה. לא, ואם זה liquid, it's a problem. לא, אבל אחר כך אם אני שם liquid. Which one?
Nothing there.
One more time. Nothing to do with dairy. One more time. Am I allowed to eat truma? No.
Go on.
This is truma.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. If I put this truma in the oven with my meat, I've got a big steak there, and I put it in the oven. What happens? הכל לא כשר. אני אומר לא כשר, אבל הכוונה הכל תרומה, ואז ממילא אני לא יכול לאכול את זה. that's הכוונה לא כשר. הכל נהיה תרומה. אסור לי לאכול, כלום, שום דבר. יותר מזה, more than that, not only am I not allowed to eat anything, let's say I didn't have anything in the oven but a tray or a pan or whatever it is, and it was there uncovered, I would have to kasher it. So what do I have to do? I have to cover it. לכסות את זה. או לכסות פעמיים. אז כשאני מכסה פעמיים, then it's מותר.
אז מותר תוך כדי.